Ben Larson to the Baystate Golf Podcast. I am grateful to not have to talk to myself this week on the podcast. Ben, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And yeah, you feel a little form of crazy when you're talking to yourself for so long. So happy to maybe break that streak for you.
Yep, for sure. I appreciate it. So you're a Mass guy. Before we hit record, we were talking about all the maybe two ships passing in the night in the New England golf, amateur golf space. We worked for the same website, but at different times. And now here we are talking about golf and Massachusetts golf. You, in the last, month, launched a new newsletter, Instagram called 413 Golf, which is kind of why we connected. And I think that's a logical place to start. And just to hear about you seem like a pretty busy guy. So you're adding this to your plate, which means it must mean something to you. So what was the decision to start this newsletter and get word out about, Western Mass golf? It is a proud bunch out there. As a Bostonian, I can say that you guys are proud.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I see all the hey, when are you coming out to Western Mass comments on your Instagram and all that stuff, and all that, what you're trying to chase down the courses. But I mean, look, it's a passion, right? It's a passion project. I got a long history in golf. I mean, I'm sure we'll dive into that, but 2 kids, work, etc. You sort of like veer away from it, and then at the moment that you have some sort of a doorway in, any golfer, I'd recommend you take it. And that's kind of what I've been doing, right? So the last couple of years, my youngest daughter, who's 7 now, she started showing some interest in the game. I think she more likes hanging out with me, driving the car, whatever, but I'm going to ride it. My wife's in support of it, right? And, so pretty much anything I do based on my background, I'm like, hey, how can I make this some sort of a, I don't know, side gig, job, what have you, really kind of put some community around it. And that's kind of the goal here is, as I found, I still consider myself a transplant. I grew up down the Cape, was kind of an Eastern Mass guy, and have lived here for, going on, 15, 16 years now. So I'm like, all right, I'm here. I might as well become a part of this dang Western Mass community, right? But it's a good one, especially on the golf side, right? So I joined a club last year, a local club, about 4 minutes from my house, and it just sort of like reinvigorated me in this concept of like local/community golf. And I think that here in Western Mass, there's you can say the same thing in so many different parts of the country and of course the state, but like out here, there's such an eclectic mix of like munis that are worth it, right? And just like kind of diamonds in the rough, hidden gems, if you will. Kind of middle of the road, like when you look at, the ranch is really good, Crumpton Fox is great. And then there's these like outrageously good, we'll get into Great Horse and I'm repping the hat today, but like you go out just a little bit further west, like towards the Berkshires, and there's these like epic, iconic, like exclusive clubs. For all the, all the Berkshire kind of elite and all that sort of stuff through history. It's just a neat sort of area. And then, to try to wrap it in a bow, I guess, like 413 definitely considers itself, like, similar to West Virginia, I guess, as it is to Virginia. But like, not that we're a separate state, but there's definitely sort of like a cutoff, right? And somewhere probably west of Worcester, depending upon which way you're going. And I guess, it's just trying to wrap some community around it. There's so much energy out here that I thought it would be a good idea.
Yeah. So your newsletter kind of just pulls in, here are events, here are clubs that are running tournaments. It's a really good place if you're looking to kind of like dabble in the competitive golf space. Sure. And like a mass golf event might feel like too much, right? Or you're not quite there. You've done a nice job of just like, hey, here's a club event, here's a 1-day thing you could play in, get a buddy and play in a 2-man event or whatever it is, which is kind of a nice little database for people to have.
Sure.
And then you also just kind of naturally learn about different golf courses to go play when you're reading the newsletter and see that there's an event at a place. Maybe you don't want to play in the event, but you're like, oh, this is an hour from my house and I can go and play this golf course instead of my normal central or Eastern Mass spot. So I think that's kind of a nice piece. I would recommend people go and subscribe to the newsletter for that reason too. And then you also kind of like pick out, you write a little thing about a great horse. You wrote about Jeff Cornish today that just dropped in my mailbox right before we hopped on. How are you generating these ideas just off of your knowledge, or people starting to give you ideas and things to write about? Because I know you ask your readership to just shoot some ideas or topics that they might be interested in. How are you generating ideas? Because that's always hard for me, like week in and week out, just trying to be original and not take stuff that you've just consumed from the week and spew out and regurgitate ideas or stories that have already been used.
Yeah, for sure. It's a challenge for sure. Like it's funny when I had this idea, sort of built the foundations of things. It was like, okay, I'm gonna wait for golf season to really kick this thing off. Well, then early March we got a couple 60-degree days. Everyone's out. It's oh my god, it's golf season. Hey, we want to play here. You're gonna go here. I'm like, oh well, it's time. Let's do this thing. So I sort of fast tracked it, and then fortunately it's melting, but I'm looking at the snow outside my window here on April 5th, right? Yeah, it's a bit of a pull thus far. Of course, as the community grows, I'm sure that'll just be organic, and we'll have some stuff. My hope is that I built some decent channels for clubs and kind of league organizers, etc., to kind of submit some information. Hopefully, make that easy. But I do think once golf season sort of kicks up, there's this, and again, we're heading to the Masters, right? So that's kind of the official holiday for the world when it comes to golf. But I do expect some, a bit of a just kind of like an organic energy that like increases with, hey, what about this? Did you hear about that? So, I think it'll start to level out a little bit for sure.
Yeah. And you'll share results and all that stuff. Is there an event that you've learned about in the last like 2 months of maybe doing this and digging a little bit deeper for stuff that you're like, oh, this looks like a cool event or one that stands out as like a great Western Mass thing that people should know about?
Yeah, well, I'll take, it's funny, like I mentioned the regionality of things, and Western Mass is its own thing. Well, even inside of Western Mass, you've got like the Springfield area, you've got like, whatever, and then the Berkshires, whatever. But I'll say two things. So first off, the Public Links Championship for Mass Golf Association is going to be at the Ledges this year, just in South Hadley, which is a super fun course. I don't know if you've crossed it off your list yet, but it's super fun. I'm expecting, like they're obviously going to make it tough, but there's going to be some scores there, I think, just with some of the shorter par fours and just, things are gettable, but it's a blast there. Beautiful views, etc. And again, a town-owned course, which is really cool. So just a bit of a plug about that, that's a lot of people know about the pub links, but that's definitely one I would get on your list. And then what I'm learning, and I'll pick one of them, but I'm learning that, again, the Berkshires, man, they've got some stuff going out there. Like they have this association that's affiliate organization of the MGA called the Allied Golf Association. And basically it's, I'm not sure if it's every club in the Berkshire kind of vicinity, but a number of clubs in Berkshire vicinity sort of form this effectively a tournament rota, right? Where they, each club will host a certain tournament, and they'll go ahead and count points and play a whole bunch of really competitive tournaments within that. And then I'll pick one more out in Stockbridge Classic that I put that in the newsletter today. That's coming up in a few weeks, just a straight out medal play. I'm excited to kind of get to know the Berkshire golf world a little bit, and I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, the Little Brown Jug is one that I've always yearned to try to play in as a golf course. Wacona looks awesome. Really cool trophy. It's a place. Yep. It's an event I learned in. I was writing just a little thing for amateurgolf.com. We wanted to pick out what are the most interesting trophies in amateur golf, and the Little Brown Jug was one of those, with like the Gasparilla skull and surfboards and like revolvers and all sorts of, if you start to look at trophies, and that's a very cool old school trophy and an event that people seem to really like.
It's got some history too. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I find out about the Berkshires, and some of the even open play or member guest type events at these really, really nice clubs is there's just such a history about it. And you look back and it's like, I think it was, Berkshire Hills or Stockbridge, like, Jack Nicklaus has played rounds there, back in qualifiers and all this stuff. And it's really cool. And I mean, the golf and the courses have held up.
Yeah, for sure. Just your role in the industry in general. You worked for amateurgolf.com. I do some work for them now and do some writing for them. And you said you've kind of been in the golf space, and I know you're in marketing as well right now is kind of your main gig.
Yep.
But just what kind of things have you done in the golf industry? Were you a kid who grew up on a golf course, and did you caddy, work in a cart yard? I never did. I was a summer camp kid,
Nice.
counselor and stuff. But what kind of jobs have you had in the industry, and how has that kind of maybe formed who you are and what you're up to now?
Yeah, I like that. So it's funny. I haven't thought about this in years, but I did caddy a handful of times one summer down at Hyannisport. So I grew up on the Cape, and like anyone, I mean, I'm 41, I think. So flashback to 97, I was, however old, 14, and Tiger did his thing, and he won the Masters the way he did, and I was like, oh my God, this is cool, right? So I played, through that point, even after that, I played baseball, and that was my number one sport. But I don't know, I think it was like 1A and 1B, because golf's just been a huge part. I think I had more success in golf. I played through high school. We had a really good team, and that was cool. But yeah, so technically I did caddy. In between a few summers in college, I worked at Sandwich Hollows Golf Club, formerly Round Hill. I was a junior member there. So that's I think, one of the things you throw out on Instagram lately about, what are some cool greens that are kind of sneaky good. And I threw that course out there. That's got some nostalgia in my heart as I was like going back there. But yeah, so I went to Salem State College, and wanted to be a sports writer, right? So I went there, I did that, graduated, worked with the Salem News up in Beverly, had the opportunity to take over the golf column. I was doing a whole bunch of other things, but to be the golf guy in that area was pretty cool. That's another nice niche-y little area where they care a lot about each other, and there's a lot of good events and people there. We were talking earlier, my wife grew up out here in Western Mass, so I was fortunate enough to land a role at ESPN, did that for a few years. Wasn't specifically covering any specific sport, but if I had the opportunity to, get on golf, I was on the digital media side at that point. Certainly took it. Came up, went back towards the local area. I was at masslive.com as kind of a sports guy. I did as much, I was more focused on kind of the whole high school and college scene, a handful of professional sports as well. But, golf was sort of spoken for by my dear friend Russ Held. I don't know if you've met him, but he's the former Republican sports writer from the Republican, who was like the golf guy out here in Western Mass for years and years. Proud subscriber of the 413 Golf newsletter as well. But, yeah, so, at that point, started doing some moonlighting for amateurgolf.com, and that was really the into the industry. So I worked for amateurgolf.com, and, really ran all things editorial for them for about 3 or 4 years. Worked at the quickly defunct Back Nine Network in Hartford.
Oh, yeah. Shane Bacon.
Yeah. It was
right?
Shane
He was
Bacon.
part of that, too.
Yeah, and a handful of other really talented people. So that was like kind of a good news, bad news situation. Met a whole bunch of people, opened up a whole bunch of doors, but it was, just very abrupt. At that point, it was like, okay, the media side, it's been really good to me. Navigated a pretty good career. I think due to some scars, switched over to the brand side and worked at Arcos Golf, where they were looking for kind of a content-focused marketing guy. So, it's not one of the early members of the team there, and they've had just great success. But, just logistically, pre-COVID, my wife and I welcomed our second daughter. And I was like, okay, I was doing some commuting. They're based in Stamford, Connecticut. And the logical next step was to, kind of move down there. That just didn't really work out. So ended up back to home in the Western Mass area, and kind of, if insurance is the thing up in the 91 corridor between Hartford and Springfield. And, been fortunate enough to have a really good role. Berkshire Hathaway Insurance Company, heading up marketing. It's a really good, really great company, et cetera. But, this 413 golf and some of the other projects that I'm into was, just kind of feeding the soul a little bit. So, I'm sure that was a ramble, but yeah,
That's
it's
great.
been, golf's awesome. I learned early that I loved it. It's sort of, the bug bit me, and it's it's playing me still.
Yeah, I've had Arcos for
Nice.
I think I got it before COVID, so I've been using them for a good long time. I've kind of run through my little nubs at the end and had to they give you the discount on the replacements as the batteries wear out over time, but
Yeah.
it's a great tool as far as, I mean, if you want some strict honesty about your golf game, you put those in and you play a few rounds and you realize you don't hit it as far as you think you do.
No, you're not as straight as you are, as you think you are. You really,
Yeah.
but in the end, it really is a game improvement tool. And they've done such a good job. I mean, even since I've left, just they're in the grips now.
Yep.
We're all over the place and doing a good job. Still a lot of good friends that are at Outcomes.
Yeah, and even just the app. The app is
Yeah.
great. You can kind of like preview golf courses, which I like doing. So yeah, it's a great product. How do you see? This is kind of a nerdy writer question, but like they always say, the smaller the ball, the better the writing. And like, how golf and storytelling, and how do you see those two things? And like with your newsletter and with your history, kind of just writing about golf, like how do those two things in your mind go hand in hand?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, there's there's a few ways to answer it. I think there's this. I guess it'd be similar in baseball too, and I don't know why it's not deemed this way with other sports, because there is history, but like there's so much history that you get this just natural sense of nostalgia with like anything, right? So whether it's comparisons or just kind of harkening back and kind of comparing things from the the past to what's happening today, et cetera, whether it's a person or a course. There's just like, it's kind of right there for the taking, kind of low hanging fruit for a lot of us writers. But I in the end, I think it's the people, right? Like there's people that whether you're writing about a course or an event or some sort of a performance, right? It's the people who make it happen, right? I think there's just so many layers once you get the people involved, that I think that's sort of what makes a good story.
Yeah, for me, the other piece is just like there's people who will play Pinehurst for the next 2 months before the US Open and like have that experience where we're going to watch the NBA playoffs and no one's taken a free throw or a corner three in the TD Garden.
That's true.
Or so very few people have, you get your high schoolers and your college kids, but like, it's not something that you can sign up and pay to do. And
right.
Like, so that, I love that about golf over kind of the other sports. And it feels to me like that's one of those things that makes your newsletter interesting, and kind of makes the golf space so different. You've got, you worked for Arcos, which is trying to help people get better at a game. But then you written about people who are already good at the game. And they're both they're trying to get better as well. And it just kind of has that, I tell people it just kind of swallows you whole, because there's so many different ways that you can get into it and then you could fall in love with it. And, and it just creates all of these different avenues to tell stories and think about how the game can improve and how you can get better at the game. It's a wild sport in that way.
Yeah. Not to get too poetic, but it's like it's almost like it's the this concept of improvement, and literally, whether you are at 30 plus handicapper, some sort of a competitive amateur, or Tiger Woods, right? You are literally always trying to either stay better, get better, improve on this, improve on that, and it's like this. I don't know. It's this. I don't know. It's like this idea of the human condition. It's like growth over anything, right? And I think it's neat. I really do think it's neat, because like, whatever, like I'm not trying to improve the location on my like 2-seam fastball anymore, right? But
yeah,
right, and like just keep the ball. I pitched, right, but keep the ball down, right? I'm focused on just improving X part of my game, to save, a shot here, right? So it's neat. I mean, it's a beautiful game.
Yeah. What's your game like?
It's getting better. It's getting there. Yeah, taking some time off, man, was rough. I mean, I think back in the day, like I said, I played in high school. I ended up playing baseball in college, and sort of like in Salem, they played. The golf team played Kernwood and Salem Country Club and all that, and like these Ferncroft.
Yeah, good spots up there. Yeah,
just courses. And so I was like, I should just go for the golf team. I mean, I probably no business, playing in some of the events, but at least I got to practice and playing golf. Yeah. It never worked out. But I think last year was a good year. I think I got down to like a 3.7, I think was the lowest I got, and so it's a little rough starting out this year. Gotta teach myself how to chip and putt again, but it's good. It's good. I'm excited this year. I'm playing in my first Mass Golf Association qualifier. I'm gonna try to qualify for the putt links, and it'll probably be a disaster. But you know what?
No, you can't say that. Where are you trying to qualify?
So Chicopee Country Club. So in
the
newsletter today, that's the only qualifier that has any spots left. So if you're looking to get in pub links, you got to sign up pretty quickly. But
I had forgotten about signing up for that, and I went on last week, and Chicopee and Cyprian Keys were the two options. And as a guy who lives in Boston, that's a long way to go to get to Chicopee. So I was like, I'm just gonna go play. I'm gonna go play some target golf at Cyprian.
Nice.
hope a bunch of people hit the ball all over the place, and maybe I can squeeze my way in.
Yeah.
That'll be your first one.
Yeah. I haven't played really competitive golf in a while. I mean, I last year started joining the circuit, played in a few member guests, and even that I got nerves. You know what I mean? It's there's probably some people that would hear this or listen to this and watch it maybe and be like kind of rolling their eyes, and it's like I don't know, man, it's real. It's
so
you get
hard.
Nerves when you're up there. So whatever, we'll see how it goes. I know that if I play well, I'll probably be at least in decent shape, but we'll see.
Yeah, the my goal in those is always just how long does the round. It always matters. Like all 18 holes matter, and I'm gonna play hard, but like how long does every shot matter in the context of I can qualify, right? Like if you make the turn and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm playing pretty good, I might have a shot. Like that's nice. And then you get maybe to the back 4 or 5 holes, and you're like, that's always my goal. Just how long can I extend my ability to say, I think I can do this.
So you're telling me there's a chance,
Exactly.
I don't know. We'll see. There's going to have to be a lot of refinement between now and whenever that is, June something. But it'll be fun. And like I said, it's exciting for me to, as I launch this newsletter and try to, situate myself as sort of this person who knows stuff or shares things that other people know, right? It's exciting for me to kind of get involved in that, to see it at the ground floor.
If your handicap was, because I know they moved the handicap for the Mass Am, would you have tried to qualify for the Mass Am? I think I just made the cutoff by like 0.3 or something when they moved it down.
Way.
No, not interested.
Yeah. And it's funny you said like it's not like the local links thing is any easier or anything like that. There's these college kids and these younger, like there's tons of talent, right, that are in that just as well as the Mass Am, but I don't know, probably not.
Yeah.
Get my toe into it, maybe have a somewhat positive outcome. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes though. Yeah.
You got the mid am too. You could always give a crack at.
True.
That's another.
The
vibe is really good. Yeah,
that's true.
The vibe is so different from like a Mass Am qualifier to a mid am qualifier. You get the college kids and high school kids who are there. College bags, they're locked in, and then the mid-am, guys might be taking some phone calls. They've got some work things they're dealing with just before they hop on the tee. It's very, very funny, just the way, the difference it is between those two. But good for you. That'll be fun. Have you played Chicopee before?
I have, yeah. It's a fun little track. Yeah, I like it. It's speaking of Cornish, that's one of his fun ones, and Yeah, I haven't played in a couple of years. I want to say I played it kind of that 2020 COVID area, era, but definitely getting out there just a few times beforehand. And again, ledges. I've had some of my better rounds at ledges. So if somehow I could squeak in, who knows? You never know.
Yeah, right.
But
I love that attitude.
yeah. Expectations are low, but hopes are high, I guess.
Yeah. Qualifying golf is so different and so challenging. But then it makes. I was listening to John Sherman, who's a guy on Twitter and has a Sweet Spot podcast, and he was saying, like, once you play in those things, the other versions of golf get so much easier. Right? You get a little bit of nerves and you learn how to handle it, and then you go play with your buddies, and it's just it gets a little bit easier. So whatever you're doing, it's going to make your golf game better, even if you don't make it or don't play well, which I have definitely done in the past.
Have you qualified for anything?
I have never qualified. The closest last year, I tried to qualify for the Mass Am and did not play great. And I missed the pub links by 2 shots. I made an 8 on the 16th hole at President's Golf Club and missed by 2. I got stuck up against a fence and had to take it unplayable, and I still couldn't get my club. I just made a really awful 8 on a par 5. So I missed by 2, and then I've missed the Mass Am by 1 shot a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I played 17 holes, and we had to wait for 90 minutes for lightning to blow through, and I knew I was on the line. I made bogey on the hardest hole at Fall River, which is a cool little course down on the southeast. So so I've been close. So just keep trying, keep paying my money, going to get my butt kicked.
Maybe this is the year.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right. So I gave you a little homework before we started. I like to give this homework to everyone who comes on. I think it's a kind of a neat way to talk about some different golf courses around whatever state they're in. So this started as a very morbid, like if this is your final 5 rounds, and I've reframed it to you're not going to play golf in Massachusetts again, or for a very long time. You're leaving the state, and you get 5 rounds to play. How are you using them? I give people, when I gave you the prompt, you can play one place 5 times if that you like love some place, or you can play 5 places once, or kind of mix it up and play a place twice. So you can do it however you want. So it's not 5 courses, it's 5 rounds. So I'm gonna you have kind of a lot of people I talk to they tend to live in like one part of the state. So I'm interested to see what you have as a Cape guy who's now in Western Mass, and how you broke it up, or maybe you didn't break it up.
I guess it's looks 50-50.
Okay, that's great.
Well, give or take. I spoke to like kind of the nostalgia, I guess, piece of the story. We'll talk about storytelling, and I think that's huge for me. In the game of golf, with a lot of things, but specifically in golf. So, like, first, right out of the clubhouse, I'm going to Baystate Golf Club. So I had the fortunate opportunity in high school. I played on the high school team in 8th and 9th grade, in Baystate Durham, of course.
Okay.
So I effectively learned. 8th grade, I was a terrible golfer, just figuring out how to do this thing. So like the memories of learning how to play at such a wonderful place, right? Like, and for me, like, that's just what golf was supposed to be. And then you go to some of these other courses, it's like, wait, why isn't it as good as where we practice for high school? So Pocasset, it just has a special place in my heart. And over the years, as I've gotten to play, countless other courses, I'm like, wow, I really like this one. It makes me feel a certain way. Come to find out, it's a Dollar Ross, right? It's built, it's built in a certain way to do a certain thing. So, like, some of my favorite courses remind me so much of Pocasset. I've spent, with AmateurGolf.com, spent a lot of time down in Southern Pines, Mid Pines, Pine Needles, and those give me a similar feel. So yeah, Pocasset would be, that's my go-to all the time. Which leads me to the next one. And this is a Western Mass one, Longmeadow Country Club. I don't know if you've had a chance to get out there, but it gives that similar feel. Another Dollar Ross. is just so gorgeous and just nice and so fun. I played it, I think only twice, but one time it was, me and a friend. It was okay. So this is gonna be a long story. In Western Mass, they have this thing called the Western Mass Tea Party. It's an annual sort of event where one person or a group of people get sort of honored each year, right? So one year, this is when I was I forget where I was working at this point, but Russ Held, second reference on this podcast, getting some good Russ Held life here. He and I didn't end up getting a spot in the Western Mass Tea Party outing because they go and play that day as well. But they happen to be honoring the pro from Longmeadow, and the whole club went over and played there at the outing, wherever that was that year, I'm not sure. And he said to Russ and I, have the course. So we had the course to ourselves, and it was glorious. It was just so nice. We played like the slowest round ever, just kind of took it all in, and it's just really nice. It's like, for anyone who's like in the Springfield area, you're not far from literally downtown Springfield, and you're somehow in it's like being in Narnia, or like Jumanji or something. You're like, how am I here, right? So that's another gorgeous place. Again, another Don Ross, somewhat similarly. So I'll stay in Western Mass, and this is another one. This is Taconic. I've actually never played there. I've only heard wonderful things. I'm gonna play there later this summer, so I'm excited. We're going on a trip actually up to Vermont. We're gonna sidetrack to Taconic and see what's going on up there. So I'm very excited. You got any pointers, tips, thoughts?
Oh, it's my favorite that I've played that I had not played before the Quest. It's nice. Like the the new to me since 2020 golf course. I love it. My experience was similar. You describing Longmeadow, Taconic popped into my head. I went on, my wife and I would go out to Williamstown in kind of during COVID. It was a nice way to get out of Boston and not leave state lines, which was always the risk. What a time to be alive that was. So we go to Williamstown, and I played in like late August on a Saturday, teed off at 4:00. We had like lunch on the patio beforehand. And they're like, yeah, the tee's yours. And I played by myself and loved it. And then I got to go back and play it again last September. It's so good. The back nine is probably one of my favorite nines that I've played in the state. It's really tough, but just the variation of holes and the closing stretch is really strong. And it's hosting the Women's Am this year, Mass Women's Am, which I'm hoping to go out and see. Or the NESCAC women are playing there as well, which is kind of another good event in early May if people just want to go and walk the golf course and see good golf. But greens are awesome. Cool. I heard that they're doing some work on some of the greens right now to kind of soften them up because they can get pretty slick around the edges on some of them. But it's awesome. I'm jealous and looking forward to hear what you have to say when you play it. But it's well worth whatever you're going out of your way to get to. It's definitely worth that little detour.
Yeah, we're very excited. I think it's like late June we'll be going out there doing that. And Country Club of Vermont, where Buddy's a member, we're going to play a few rounds there, which is another diamond in the rough if you cross state lines, which we can now, thankfully.
We can now. We're allowed again.
All right, I got two more. So we're going to head back down to not necessarily the Cape, but kind of the Buzzards Bay area. This one is Catanzas. I've never had the opportunity, but I've sort of seen things, and just this harkens back to nostalgia and then my fifth pick a little bit. So let me bridge between the two. But so you can kind of almost see it. You're so close to Catanzas when you're at Marion Golf Club. Back when I, Marion is getting that resurgence. It's getting all the love and flowers it deserves, right? But there were some down years, man. There were some down years. And when I wasn't at Pocasset playing for the Bourne high school team, I was at we used to call it Little Marion, right? And that place is just spectacular. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So many good memories there. Some of my, my best friends, I remember teaching, some of their first rounds were there. I remember one time we went and played pouring rain, but we're like, screw it. We're just going to keep playing. I remember at that point, one of my friends, it might have been me, I can't remember. One of us didn't have golf gloves, let alone golf, rain gloves or anything like that. So somebody threw on their batting gloves, right? Because we're all baseball players. And they were the black, like Nike ones. And we ended the rounds, and his hands were so dyed with black or whatever it was from those gloves. That I think it was like a week later that you could finally see his hand. But so between that, I remember playing in a high school match there, and a kid. It's like the third-ish hole. It's a little par 3. It goes, you got to get it over the
that's 3.
The wall, or through the wall, which I've learned. This dude topped it right off the tee. Terrible shot, just almost missed the ball. Thing rolls, swear to God, rolls through the opening, hole in one. He aced it. He aced the hole, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, it was. I wish I remembered.
Amazing.
I was from Fairhaven High School. It was wild. Yeah, so stuff like that, and just tons of good memories there. But my point in bringing up his hands into that conversation is, you could almost feel that you were right across. I don't know the full geography of things, but you're so close to Costanza there that it's like back in the day we're like, well, we're at this kind of rundown track, and I'm so excited that Marion is getting all the love that it deserves. And with LA Country Club hosting last year, the US Open, I know there was like a sort of a buzz about Marion here. So so those are my courses, kind of a weird eclectic mix, and I'm sure I missed some. Sure,
always. It's your list.
But that's the list.
Andy Johnson of the Fried Egg uses a great comparison to like sharing or introducing someone to coffee. He says you wouldn't take someone to a gas station to try coffee for the first time. Like, it's just not what you would do. But a lot of people are learning and playing like golf courses that are like gas station coffee for the first time. Marion is like the nice little coffee shop in your town.
Exactly.
That has, because it is like a great beginner golf course, but it also has these weird quirks where you're hitting over walls and like over berms, and there's trees in the way, but it's like it's if you're a new golfer, it's kind of like, oh, this is kind of neat. This isn't what I see on TV and watching guys. I can get it around and I can roll it most places if I have to, either between things or so I think about that comparison a lot with him. Like, if you're going to introduce someone to something like, and Marion is definitely not the gas station. There's plenty of gas station coffee out there in the golf world. I have played plenty of them in this state over the last 4 years. But Marion, so Marion, what was Marion like? I've only played it once. I played it last September. Growing up, it was just like, what made it? You said went through tough times. Was it just complete like disrepair?
And who knows? Maybe I'm painting a bad picture, because again, like
I don't think so, because I've heard other people say that the same thing, which is why I asked. Yeah,
before I played Marion, like I was at Baystate Golf Club for like 5 days a week. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's just like, very, very well maintained, right? So maybe I'm skewed a little bit, but I just remember it. Like there's I guess my current taste would appreciate this, but like I just remember there was like no clean lines anywhere, right? It was hard to differentiate between the rough and the fairway, right?
Yeah.
Greens, I want to say that the greens still held up. I don't recall the green being, a challenge back in the day. And again, this is like late 90s, right? Late 90s, early 2000s maybe. But I just don't think that it had been receiving the love that it's currently getting, because I haven't been there in years, but seeing some of the aerials, the drone photography, etc., it's like, wait, this is that course? Holy cow. But again, you can still see some of the quirks, and I think the quirks are ultimately what make it what it is. It's cool. I mean, it's like, I wrote in the newsletter today about Cornish and all this sort of stuff, and it was his approach being, all right, we're just going to kind of do as best of a job as we can here, and with whatever budget we have available, right? And you can kind of see that, and it's neat to me that like George Thomas would like even take that on. You know what I mean? Like, but it's a gorgeous piece of property right on the water, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just neat. It's part of that whole golf is a a weird, awesome, beautiful, horrible, wonderful sport.
Right. And
It's
the
really
dichotomy between Marion and Catanza too, like they
right.
share very similar. They're on the same road, and one's a
Yeah.
9-hole public golf course with an honor box, I think, at some points in the day, and Catanza's hosting USGA events, and kind of just stunningly beautiful and in its own way. I do have to ask, because you're wearing the hat and you're in Western Mass. Great Horse. You wrote about it just in one of your newsletters in the last couple weeks. You've played it.
Yeah.
Did you play it before it was Great Horse as well? No. Okay.
Oh no. So there's a lot of people who, it's funny. I think the prevailing theory for folks who knew the old Handy Country Club and have since played Great Horses, it's really nice lipstick, but it's Handy Country Club just done up really nicely.
Yeah,
I can't imagine that that's true. Not to call anyone a liar or exaggerate or anything like that, but I can't imagine that is ultimately true. I'm not exactly sure how, if at all, the layout changed. I know that there was like heavy work done, like at least a handful of holes that involve rerouting and things like that. But just what they invested into that is just really spectacular. I mean, talk about the clean lines, right? Everything's perfect there, frankly. I found it personally like extremely difficult. So I played it back maybe a year or two. I'm probably gonna get all my math wrong, but I played it when the greens were still kind of figuring themselves out, and they were just hard as rocks, and it was painful. Because you'd hit a good shot and you'd be bouncing somewhere crazy, you're really not getting what you probably deserved. That's changed for sure. It's definitely a little more receptive, but yeah, the greens are just an extreme challenge. They added a bunch of bunkers. The bunkers are beautiful. Like the bunkering is just gorgeous. But they're a challenge. They very much so many courses. If you can kind of keep it in the middle, you really don't even notice the bunkers, but you can't not see them here at Great Horse. And then for me, it's like Western Mass has this. I wouldn't say there's an outrageous amount of like fine dining and just elite air to things. Certainly some areas more than most. But I mean, what a place! The clubhouse. I mean, just the service, the food, the drinks. I mean, it's just wonderful. We've had a bunch of work events and things like that there, so I know that the events really are pretty nice as well. But yeah, what a place! Like I just, if you are of the ilk to be a private member somewhere here, and you happen to live in Western Massachusetts, to have this, and this is kind of like maybe in direct competition, certainly with Longmeadow. I know a lot of folks kind of move back and forth when Great Horse did open, but like, I mean, how lucky are you, right? Like this place, you could pick up that clubhouse and pick up the look and feel of the course and put it in, I don't know, Scottsdale or somewhere where it probably belongs. But for the folks that are kind of lucky enough to be members there and or play and all that stuff, what a place. It's just it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's it fits and sticks out at the same time. It's really hard to describe, right? Like you drive by it and you don't notice it from the road really. You see the golf, and then like driving up and you're in the clubhouse and we've stayed in my wife's been lucky enough to have her boss as a member, and we've stayed in the lodges a couple times, and it's like, man, this is awesome. And you feel like you're in Western Mass, but also you could feel like you're in Montana or kind of out in Big Sky, with just the way they've decorated it and everything. And yeah, you can definitely play that course down the middle and find the bunkers, because there are a whole bunch of bunkers down the middle of that golf course too. Like you are managing your way around so many bunkers, like center line bunkers and stuff, just to give, especially on the flatter side of the course, just to give it some, I don't know. It's like those create elevation because you have to be able to fly over them, or you got to work your way around them. Which is pretty clever. Yeah, it's a very cool spot. And if anyone gets a chance to go play it, it's definitely worth playing. I know that people have gripes about it, and like some people don't love it. And competitive golf the Mass Mid-Am was there a couple years ago, and it can be a little bit funky, and you might find yourself, like I said, hitting some tee shots that feel like I hit this shot for the last 4 holes now. I don't really, but overall, as an experience and a place like in Western Mass that you talked about having so much, like the place has so much history in the area, and then you just get this, hey, we're like the modern new guy on the block. And more. I wish there was more people who were taking some golf courses and doing not the same thing, but just having some imagination with. You need some money to do it, but I played Elmcrest down the road, and it's gone. That's and a shame. you see places that just kind of have been left to go stale, and maybe will never open again. So it's cool that they took a place and made it a newer place versus building something from scratch. So I think that's kind of a nice model as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I know it's sort of when they acquired that property, it was like, oh yeah, we'll do a little this, a little that. I think bunkers was the first thing, and next thing you know, it is what it is now. And it's like, how did it go from that initial plan to that? And I think you just see the opportunity. There's so many other. I'm sure it's across the state, but I mean, I could pick out like 5 in the the Western Mass area that could just with not that amount of capital, but just a teensy little bit of love, maybe a different approach, different way of thinking, that could really be something. Really, just be something either that it once was, or something totally different that would ultimately be like a positive thing. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the golf boom is supposedly still occurring.
Booming.
So hopefully, there's more takers like that. More insanely rich, crazy golf sickos. I guess that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah. I mean, we got Cornish's course at the Pines just got completely flipped around. That's right. And it's going to be private and everything, but that's another little proof of like, oh, there's some money in these parts, and
for sure
people can or people from outside come along. Like I think it's Escalante owns International, but yeah, that's another exciting one just to go hopefully see at some point. Core Crenshaw, another one in the state, is a nice little stamp of approval too. So, is that what is Central Mass? Last thing, where does is that Worcester? Is that Worcester to the 495 belt? Is that kind of the central in your estimation?
I would say, I guess so. Okay, so I mentioned some of my work history and all that stuff. I was like the high school sports guy in Western Mass for years and years, working at masslive.com. So I go back to that. It's like, all right, they don't really do it now because like depending upon the sport, there might be like a Western Mass championship. I don't even know if Eastern Mass or teams in Eastern Mass do that anymore. But back in the day, you would, if you qualified for the state tournament, there was a Western bracket, there was a Central bracket, there was I think it was North and South, right? That was kind of like Eastern Mass. That's how I think about it. It's weird, I don't know if that's good or bad, but yeah, it's like, it gets a little murky for me. Like, I don't know, between like, I'm gonna mess up the towns here, but like between Fitchburg and like, I don't know, Tewksbury. Like, I don't know where. You know what I mean? There's like I know Tewksbury is like Eastern, but like there's a couple towns there where I'm like, I don't know, Rotten, what's that?
Yeah.
And then this where the South become North. But yeah, for me, Central Mass and Western Mass have always been pretty clear. It's like, all right, did I never have a chance of playing this town when I was growing up in anything? All right, there's Central Mass or Western Mass. Okay, now let's just find the line, right?
Where's that line?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. And what I say to people too is like, my parents still live on the Cape. It's called like 2 hours 2 hours, 10 minutes, depending upon traffic and all that stuff. It's not that far. It's really not. People have this like feeling that this, if this like some other side of the world, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny when I'm like, oh, do I, if I have a chance to go play somewhere in like Eastern Mass or whatever, should I really spend the, hour and a half, 2 hours in the car when, on weekends, every weekend in the winter, I'm, taking my daughter, 3.5 hours for a hockey game, right? It's like, well, where's this, what is going on here? So I've been desensitized to the drive. But yeah, you can get, it's one good thing about the States, you can get from Taconic to, Highland Links and Truro and still be able to play, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's small. It's, I think there should be more community, and that's kind of, that's ultimately the 4-on-3 stuff.
Taconic to Highland sounds like a good challenge. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
That would be a fun early morning, late afternoon, hit the road.
Maybe on the solstice.
Yeah. You could take the ferry, drive to Boston, take the ferry.
Yeah.
Play Highland.
Yeah. That's cool.
All right, man. Well, this was fun. Good luck in your qualifier, and we'll definitely be in touch. And people should go. They can find you on Instagram. It's 413. I don't have it in front of me. It's just 413 golfers or an underscore hiding.
Nah, some other person had 413 golf, so it's 413 golf guide. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
413 golf guide.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I know someone grabbed Baystate Golf too. I had an underscore in mind. It's like, God, and the guy has one post.
Yes.
From 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I DM'd him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel your pain. All right. So 413 Golf Guide. You can find everything there and subscribe to the newsletter, find some new places to play, get some interesting stories from Ben. And Ben, thanks for your time. Yeah. And hopefully the snow melts soon and we can go play some golf.
It's almost gone. And so that's a good thing, just as we're talking. Good. So yeah, we'll be able to play. And I appreciate you having me on. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thanks.